Sangoma made us a gold partner, which was a very important development.
So
we have a certificate.
We do have a certificate.
That proves it.
Yes, it does, exactly. It's in a frame on the mantelpiece.
On the mantelpiece.
With our phones.
It is with our phones.
It is.
Would you say we're closed off to talking to anybody else? Are you closed off? It's not Love Island. I am. I'm not interested at all.
It's not that I'm interested. I don't know why. If they actually came to you directly
and said what,
and was like, "I can get you these phones."
Yeah, I don't care.
Well, I'd have it there. It doesn't mean I start selling it.
But I think what's important about the Sangoma phones is that it's part of the joined up, not just marketing effort, but a customer knows that they have a Sangoma phone system because there's a Sangoma phone on their desk. I've got some non-Sangoma people actually liking my posts.
No.
Well, that is a first. I mean, one. I feel like the memory cards and everything are going to run out before we even produce anything.
Yeah, probably.
How do people do this?
I don't know, but I normally just sit next to you and nod.
No, don't sit next to me and nod, because what was going to be good is that we're a husband and wife team and we have these conversations all the time.
Then we need someone else asking us questions.
Someone prompting us to have a conversation. What are you going to do? Knock next door and ask someone to come in? Maybe we could just do a podcast where people listen to us not knowing what to say.
No, that sounds awful.
Yeah, it's like real life. I reckon that's why people are terrified of doing it. Even if they get to the point of starting,
Yeah.
But here we are. This is Monday.
Yeah.
This is every Monday. Whenever we post things, no one seems to, in the telecoms industry, seems to share it.
No.
I wonder why.
Because they don't want you shouting about somebody else.
No. But if it was FreeCX, they'd probably share it everywhere.
That's because they were using 3CX.
Yeah.
So why did you choose Sangoma?
Well, Sangoma came about because of FreePBX.
Yeah.
I wanted to learn how to configure an Asterisk-based phone system myself. And it started as a hobby or a project. And I came across FreePBX, which was essentially, when installed with Asterisk, a complete phone system that didn't carry any apparent license charges either. We were a reseller, and we were literally buying someone else's solution and marking it up. So the user license would be a couple of quid, and we'd stick some pounds on that and sell it. But we didn't have any real control over that phone system itself, other than some basic administration. If something was to go wrong with it, or when it came to updates or even configuring more complex tasks, we didn't really have any kind of control. So what FreePBX gave us was the ability to manage everything end to end, which was the space we wanted to move into. We wanted to provide a proper maintenance-based service to the customer. You're able to use a web-based software, which, if you press add extension, decide what extension number is, and press submit, it will apply those changes at asterisk level to enable you to then configure a phone and so on.
And you were looking for other ways to do what we do rather than buying from somebody else. You came across FreePBX whilst I was away, learnt about it, learnt about Vulture, so you can put FreePBX on their VMs. And then I guess from there, it's powered by Sangoma. So then the next question is, okay, well, who is Sangoma?
So Sangoma are the stewards of the FreePBX and Asterisk project. So Asterisk is essentially an open source toolkit as the building blocks of a phone system or a communication system, whereas FreePBX is the graphical user interface for managing Asterisk, and of course other dependencies, other Linux system-based requirements. So where Sangoma came into things is they became the stewards of both of those projects. So they acquired Digium, which were the owners, the original founding creators of the Asterisk project, and FreePBX, formerly Schmoozecom. So they took over both components of that, and also manufactured their own phones, or at least it was perceived to me at the time that they were manufacturing their own phones. It turns out they were rebadged, the S series, but the P series, the newer line of phones is indeed manufactured in-house.
So when we found FreePBX, we were originally at the time using Cisco phones, because at the time that's all we knew, and it was a good phone. But then, like you say, we then came across the fact that Sangoma then did their own phones, and it then made sense to put their phones on that platform. So could you just go to anyone and just start buying Sangoma phones? Do we have to go direct to them? I can't remember what we did. How did we end up getting their phones and putting them on the platform? And, you know, that's all we sell now.
So one of the modules within FreePBX is Endpoint Manager, and I hadn't come across something like this, and that might have been, for me, naive, but the way that you provision a phone and make changes to that phone on the fly, so whether you're moving buttons around or you're changing the screensaver, all of that sort of stuff could be done remotely, as well as firmware updates and so on. So most users have their own particular preference for how a phone might be set up. So an example of that would be one person wants to be able to press a particular button to access the contact directory. Another person wants a button that takes them straight to voicemail or whatever, and they might all want it in a different order. So Endpoint Manager gave us the ability to control these things, but within that, the free version of Endpoint Manager was Sangoma phone. So you had to have a phone from Sangoma. You could use another manufacturer such as Yealink or Polycom, but you would then have to pay a commercial module license for that added functionality to be able to do this with other phones. So Endpoint Manager allowed us to control the phones in a way that we weren't used to. It was also designed and set up for something called zero-touch provisioning, which meant you used the Sangoma portal to specify where the phone should talk to upon boot up. So you would literally plug the phone in. It would talk to the phone system or the FreePBX out there in the world, wherever it was. It would know where to go, because you would specify a fully qualified domain name or an IP address. And at that point, it would pull down all of its configuration files as specified in Endpoint Manager. So all of a sudden, we had a situation where we could plug in a phone, it would pull down its configuration, it would boot up in exactly the fashion that the end user had wanted it set up and designed, and then if there were any changes to the phone, we were able to do all of that remotely through this particular module. That was a whole new world for us. We hadn't really experienced that before, and it made everything extremely easy to manage. The idea that we would go back to manually configuring a phone by logging into it with a screen share or whatever just seemed like a complete waste of time.
If I remember, we were buying them from someone, and the only reason we had to, I guess, look somewhere else to keep buying these phones is because they stopped selling them.
Yeah, the stock started to dwindle, and when I made inquiries about that, they said they weren't selling the phones anymore. So we needed to start making inquiries with Sangoma directly about how we continue to buy their phones, or else it was going to be a case of putting different phones in and then changing the way that we're working. So we would either, with the Endpoint Manager, take the commercial version of that so that we could start selling Yealink, or we can continue with the free version of that module, which only catered for Sangoma phones. And they were responsive, right? So they put us in contact with the UK distributor. They made pricing available to us, which was, at the time, quite astonishing, because we didn't realize there was such margin within equipment. You know, we'd be lucky if we, let's say, sold a router. We'd be lucky if there's 3 or 4 quid in it to cover the postage and packaging.
It didn't matter if it was a switch, a router, a phone. We thought that £3-4 profit was all there was to have.
Yeah, because as a reseller through the years, I think we were consistently ripped off. We didn't understand the level of margin that is available when you're working with almost directly, albeit through the distributor. So what that meant is that if we were to, let's say, sell 5 or 10 or 15 of these phones, that there was a big chunk of profit to be made in that, and it made absolute sense to us that we would then continue down that path.
So is that how they found out about us? Because we went to them directly for the phones, or do you think they were aware of us before that? Is that why we got or how we got our silver partnership?
I mean, you like to think that when you're actively promoting a product or a service, be it open source and free or whatever, that you're noticed. I think the difficulty with FreePBX is that essentially it was a free product, and we work in a world where licensing and paying a user or you know, the end user paying a license cost to use the software is what they expect. TeamViewer and Office 365 and so on, where a monthly subscription is to be expected. And we're talking to our customers about a software that doesn't require a license. We didn't get much pushback on that, but we certainly weren't shouting about it to the degree that perhaps it would have been noticed by a company as big as Sangoma. Also, just to say that they don't make money on that free iteration of the product. What they make money on is the phones and the commercial licenses that you can bolt onto that software. So the software is pretty much complete insofar as you can set up and run a very good phone system. But you know, there's some enhancing features that certainly not necessarily larger businesses, but businesses that really want to make use of the software to its full potential, or for a phone system really to do things that goes above and beyond basic ring groups and so on. So an example of that would be a module called extension routing, which we ended up putting onto all of our FreePBXs, because what it does is it restricts the type of outbound route an extension can call. So if I've got a phone, I might be blocked from making international calls, even though on the system it is configured to be able to make international calls if such permissions have been granted to that particular user. So that's a commercial module, which would make Sangoma, whatever, 30 or 40 quid a year per system. At least it's now starting to make money. So we started to get to grips with the commercial modules, and it became, I think at that point you must start to come on their radar. You know, you're buying these particular licenses. You have something called the Sangoma portal, where each deployment, each phone system has logged against it the Sangoma phones that are connected to it or were at some point connected to it. And you also have the commercial licenses that are also, authorized on that particular system. These are things like soft phones and the extension routing module that I talked about, something called Sysadmin Pro, which helps you to configure the PBX as an administrator. Some of the things that you would probably need a bigger skill set if you didn't use it. So an example of that would be to configure your own email to be able to, send voicemails or alerts or notifications and things like that. Not a lot of money. You're looking at sort of $20, $25 for that particular module. But if you put it onto every deployment, and let's assume for argument's sake there are 1 million deployments, well, that's made them $25 million just for that commercial license alone. I'd like to think at the size at which we were growing and the speed in which we were putting these phone systems out there and put in what we considered to be necessary commercial modules on there, plus the phones that the customer would want on there. We didn't put anything but Sangoma phones unless the customer already had some. So, we've got a couple of customers who have Yealink phones, and they brought them over just as an example. So we were, I think we also had, did we ever keep some of the Cisco phones on there, or did we scrap all of those?
I think we started to phase them out. So when a customer that had Cisco phones, because we moved them from our old system onto FreePBX, and they naturally then brought their Cisco phones over with them. They then, when they wanted a new phone, we'd be like, oh, well, we've got this new phone here. So are you going to start mixing and matching, or are we just going to bring them all over? So we would start to sell them the Sangoma phones. I don't think there are any customers left with those phones on FreePBX.
No, so our customers very much trust us to recommend a phone to them. And I think all they really wanted at that point was something that was equal to or compatible, certainly similar in stature and so on. And with the 305, the S series 305, that had PoE, and the Cisco did not. It had a backlit screen, and the Cisco did not. It had a few more buttons. These are fairly basic things, but essentially our customers trusted us to put in whatever. And
then a few years ago, we became a silver partner.
We were just buying it from a telecoms equipment reseller, quite a popular one that sells a lot of routers and so on. And there was not really any margin to be made in that, so we were keener to get the systems out there, and we weren't too fussed about how much money we were going to make on the actual phones. To us, that wasn't part of our particular business model. We just thought, well, you buy that phone from a reputable retailer, and then you make money on the systems themselves or on the maintenance or whatever else that we're charging for. So becoming a silver partner meant that we were not only given margin, we were also given a much better insight into stock levels and forecasting volumes, or however, if we had an opportunity, let's say, where there was 25 phones, but there was only 7 in stock, we'd be able to say to them, look, we've got this opportunity. How long is it going to take you to get them in? And at that point, what they would typically do, this large distributor, they would then go ahead and buy the Sangoma stock, which was a great way, really, for us to see how this new way of working would be.
And they didn't charge us for that, did they? They didn't charge us, there was no fee to become a silver partner. There
wasn't any particular barriers to becoming a Sangoma partner. I think there's definitely an expectation of skill set, and in particular with FreePBX, that there are certifications and exams and things like that you should and can take. I think in the few years that we'd been working with the product, at not a insignificant volume, multiple systems, dozens of systems, being able to configure all of them, not run into any particular difficulty. The learning curve, although it was very, very steep, I think it was quite quick. We weren't at any point reliant on Sangoma support for things. So it was apparent to them and to us that we were capable. I think maybe a question at some point came up about us attending a particular training session. It was more a case of, do we have to? Firstly, from a cost point of view to us, it's not a lot of money, relatively speaking, but of course the time that it takes to go out of the office to do these kind of things, it was like, we can just pass the exam. And we did. There was an online exam that we took, and we were then certified, FreePBX or PBXact essentials. These were very much the things that then started to get you noticed, right? So for us to start sharing our certificate that we'd passed this exam with other providers, we didn't have to take any training. We were just reselling for them. We didn't have to pass an exam. We were just selling for them. With this, we were then able to share it on LinkedIn and say, hey, look, we're and what that what that kind of gave us is that when Sangoma, I think at the time, liked it or shared it or something like that, we were like, oh, right, okay, we are actually allowed to do this. We're authorized to do this. It was very unclear to us at the time what selling FreePBX meant. We weren't selling it, we were using it. It's an interesting model when you think about it, because you want someone to take a product and sell it for you. But at the same time, you're saying they're not allowed to sell it. So they're allowed to use it, they're not allowed to sell it. And that was the biggest hurdle for us. We found ourselves in I wouldn't say an uncomfortable position, but it was a position where we weren't sure how actively we could market the product and how actively we could talk up the fact that we were, if you wanted FreePBX, the place to come to.
We were charging our customers for our time through telephones maintenance, where we would look after the platform for them that they were sitting on, using Sangoma phones. And then this year, everything changed. We became a gold partner for Sangoma. We've had more interaction with them. There's more now a partnership with them rather than us being a little bit distant and just getting on with our own thing. And we've started selling PBXact.
Yeah, I think they recognised that we were capable of taking their software, their product to market. And it was a case of how can they make more money and how can we make more money by working in partnership, and understanding that, you know, there is a commercial side to their business and their business model. It's not just a case of selling phones. There's the commercial modules for FreePBX. But there's also a variant called PBXact, which is really where a fully buttoned up version of FreePBX and Asterisk. It goes through better quality assurance checks, modules that are updated, and system updates are all carefully done.
So I guess one of the things that worried us about being a gold partner was, you know, we are a small business selling to small businesses, and the sales targets for the majority is quite high.
The partnership status was much more about how we're going to work together rather than what we were going to do. So the expectation was that we're capable. The expectation wasn't because you're going to do X amount per year. And certainly there's no real target or threshold that we must meet. But there was certainly an understanding that this would be our primary focus. This is very much our flagship product. This is what we're putting out there. And then for us to grow our business on the back of all of that, rather than, you know, having multiple different phone systems from multiple different suppliers. And if people pick and choose it, then they do. If they don't, they don't. And that's that.
So we also found that one of the other good things about being a Sangoma partner is they don't sell direct to the end user.
A deployment ID is fixed within the Sangoma portal. So if that's assigned to, let's say, 20 Telecom, then it's not appropriate for Sangoma to be allowing that customer to come to them direct. Switchvox is their flagship product, I guess, if you could say that. Having acquired Digium, it was important to them that they made use of the software that had been built, which really is an alternative to FreePBX, but it uses the same asterisk as the core component, the core building block, if you like, being a proprietary commercial graphical user interface in the same way that FreePBX would be. So it's very much the alternative product, which for us would mean a whole new way of working. We would have to learn a new system. And we didn't get any pushback from them about what we were doing. It's not as if at that point they said, you can't do that or you can't do this. We'd clearly set out our proposition in a way that was correct. We hadn't broken any terms and conditions in the general license that's required for open source, the GPL.
And then introduced us, I suppose, to PBXact, how it could benefit us as well as benefiting them, whereas before FreePBX wasn't really benefiting them in any kind of way that was
commercially advantageous. It does make them money. There's no doubt about that. I think FreePBX does make money, but is it is it a product where if you were to take that to market and for it to scale, would it be worth their while to put a lot of time, resources into that, which would be everything from, marketing budgets and contribution to their marketing teams directly working on some ideas that we had?
Yeah, so we were really lucky in the fact that, okay, it's not going to be Switchbox. It's now going to be PBXact. We can get our heads around that. We can learn that pretty quickly because it's sitting on FreePBX, which is what we have known for years.
We were given direct, explicit permission to say that our hosted product, our hosted platform was powered by PBXact, being a Sangoma product.
Yeah. And then we can do all of our social media posts around that.
Talking much more openly about Sangoma and PBXact and what we're doing. And we could charge for it as well. So there's a license fee involved, which there wasn't for FreePBX, so to speak. There would be a commercial license for particular modules, but with PBXact, it would essentially be fully loaded with the majority of commercial modules that you would ordinarily have paid for separately with FreePBX.
Yeah. Becoming a Sangoma Gold partner, we met up with Simon, Lauren and Mark.
We did. We had lunch.
We did. We went and had lunch at the Clantrison and Pontyclean Golf Club,
which we're now sponsors of. What it gave us the opportunity to do was to tell the whole story from start to finish of where we are today and where we actually started. And I think for any of these larger telecoms companies of that type, for them to sort of hear it from the horse's mouth, as it were, for the resellers that they approach, would have been hopefully quite an interesting insight.
It was a good meeting in terms of they knew more about us. We found out more about them. It really did feel like a partnership rather than the customer meeting the supplier, vice versa. It was really understanding that it wasn't about sales targets. It wasn't like, right, we're going to meet you now. You're now a gold partner. You must meet these sales targets or else. It was more, okay, so...
We don't get the impression that they're then going to take something away from us or say, right, you're not a gold partner anymore because you haven't done this, that, or that, or the other.
Yeah, and we agreed that it would be sensible and advantageous for everybody. Just keep each other informed and kind of keep the ball rolling. One of them being our sponsorship with the golf club. They did help us to get that.
They're open to new ways of doing things and how we take this product to market.
Yeah. And it wasn't just, we've just got an advert on the telly every 20 minutes for 30 seconds, which, although very cool, there's more to it than that. And to sit around the table and thrash out ideas of how we could use that sponsorship over the next 2 years is something that we haven't had as a company for a very long time.
Yeah, we're able to invite people to come and play golf there, which we can use for referrals or new clients, or for some of our customers to take some of their clients out and things like that. So that's going to be a really interesting way of promoting ourselves.
Unique in everything we do.
Unique in everything
in almost everything.
Should we go to the advert?
Yeah.
This is the VoIP experience. Powered by PBXact, a software for phone systems developed by Sangoma in Canada and the United States of America. Built on Asterisk and FreePBX. Over here in the United Kingdom, Sangoma made us a gold partner. We hosted the software in London at Vulture's Interaction Data Center and chose award-winning suppliers. ProView for Sangoma equipment, Magarathea for calls and numbering, AWS S3 for secure daily backups, and connected it all together with ICUK, High Velocity, HostTech, WHMCS, cPanel, Enom, Modules Garden, Cloudflare, Andrews and Arnold, and City Fiber. And then for data center resilience, we did it all again in Manchester. With secondary servers at Equinix, another UK-based Vulture data center, right next to VoiceHost for the calls. It could all be done from Wales. The place we've called home for 8 years because of cloud-based technologies. England, Scotland, Northern Ireland, throughout Wales and across the globe. Trusted by small businesses, charities and high net worth individuals to keep things running smoothly. It's an experienced 24/7 operation, led by a husband and wife team, providing end-to-end maintenance with a zero downtime approach. It's been over a decade in the making. We aren't just a telecoms reseller. We are now a managed service provider, unique in almost everything we do, with plans to grow through franchise. We will continue on our journey, improving the VoIP experience. Officially backed by Sangoma. This is the VoIP experience.
Was that?
Yeah.
That's it?
Thank you very much.
Do you want to read it all from the top? No, I'm joking.
Okay.
So what did you think of the P series when you first saw it?
I hated it.
Why? That's a bit strong.
Yeah, I know. I really did.
You hated it.
Well, I was so used to the S series being all black and shiny that when the P series turned up and it was grey and matte, and also, you know, the first one that we had given to us, or the first one that we bought, was the budget phone,
The budget.
the P310, which was very new at the time.
It's
still.
very cheap though. Very cheap.
Yeah, but it was very new at the time. And I needed time to get used to it, you know, with the S series.
We were in mourning for some time.
We were.
We were. And they made it properly end of life, like, just like that.
It was really difficult. I think the first time I really had to get my head around it and just go, there is nothing I can do about it. I have to like it. Is one of our customers when I need another phone.
Mm-hmm.
And there were no 705s left. And there were no 505s left. We couldn't get hold of them. So we had to embrace the mid-range phone. So it was a 330, buy it, get it to the office, make sure it was working and the firmware was all up to date. And I think that being my job and being more hands-on with making sure that it was provisioned in the way that our customer needed it to be provisioned was me starting to enjoy working with it.
Mm-hmm.
And from there, you know, now we wouldn't even look at the S series.
I'm still looking at it, can see some here.
Yeah, but it's done. It's, you know,
You've got to move on.
you've got to move on, but at the same time, we also have to appreciate that we do have the S series out there with our customers, but we will eventually start phasing them out where, for the example I just gave, you know, our customer goes, right, I need some more phones.
Yeah.
So then it ends up being the P series, and they then hopefully get used to it and swap out their S series with the P series. And it's a slow process, but we are starting to enjoy using it now.
Mm-hmm.
Although we haven't used the P370 yet.
The touchscreen.
Yeah, we don't have one of those yet.
You have a Yealink touchscreen.
I do, but we don't talk about them.
Right.
I do have a Yealink. I do have a Yealink on my desk. One of the main reasons why is, you know, we still do have a few customers out there that do have other phones, such as Yealink, and we need to be able to talk to all of our customers about all the different types of phones that they have, and we can't be completely biased and go, you know, you must have Sangoma, because they've had Yealink since they were even before they were with us. So,
But we don't have a partnership with Yealink.
No, we've got our partnership with Sangoma. We get our gold pricing now with them. And if we have the opportunity, we will sell Sangoma phones. If a customer comes to us and they have Yay links and they don't want to change their Yay links, that's why I've got the Yay link on my desk. But also, we originally had Cisco phones because they were on a different platform. But when we found FreePBX and Sangoma, we found the Sangoma phones and could not believe that this thing called Endpoint Manager would allow you to provision and manage those phones remotely.
Yeah.
That was alien to us.
It was.
It was like magic. So that is, that's the main reason why we ended up with Sangoma phones. But moving on from that, I guess we just wouldn't use anything else now. And that is one of the main reasons still, to have Endpoint Manager, to be able to make changes to a customer's phone from Wales is really cool.
It's cool.
Yeah.
If you think it's cool.
It's cool.
Most people won't think that's cool, but we do.
Yeah. And I think our customers do as well, especially the majority that used to have to do a screen share with us because they wanted to make one tiny change and to take time out of their day and our day to do that screen share, to make that change, to pray that it rebooted was, it was cumbersome. So, yeah, I think they really appreciate it as well. So you had the technical knowledge to be able to take us away from being a reseller to a managed service provider.
I didn't have that much technical knowledge, not at the beginning.
No, but enough to look into it.
Yeah, I managed to download FreePBX and Asterisk. Well, the official FreePBX distro is essentially an operating system which combines Asterisk, FreePBX and other server-based dependencies for the thing to run. And it would be, you could download it and install it as a working phone system, which suddenly gave us control of something we hadn't had control of before. We certainly outgrew being a reseller. We weren't able to control who the provider was for outbound calls or the provider was for inbound calls, telephone numbers. These are things that are required as part of building a phone system. It's not just the software that sits on the server, right? It's also the numbers, and it's also how calls are actually made. And for us to suddenly have control of that and to be able to pick and choose different suppliers was a whole new thing. So if there was a call quality issue, we were relying on somebody else to have a look into it for us, and we constantly got. Well, we referred it to the software developers. It's like, what's the software developers? We thought you had this system that you were selling to us, and what we realised was that they were just buying it from somebody else, right? And they were sticking it onto a virtual machine, and they were plugging in SIP trunks for phone calls and numbers. We could do that. We realised we could do that. We were no longer reliant on that.
Yeah. So then we went to try and find a better way, and you came across Vulture, and
it wasn't even a better way, it was just a way. And FreePBX made it, was the apparent obvious choice for you to build a phone system and develop upon that.
Yeah, so you spent the next 12 months figuring it out, learning it, gaining your technical knowledge that you have now.
Alongside the day job of actually running the existing business that we had.
Exactly. We didn't just go, we're just going to lift all those customers and move them over straight away. We really did need to learn what we were doing, how to do it properly. Like you said earlier, try and find your, new suppliers for telephone numbers and SIP trunks and, all the things that you need to make that system work. Domain
names as well. You essentially need a whole web hosting business just to be able to run that platform, because for you to be able to, let's say, create a subdomain so that you can access that individual phone system, you need to have control of that. And yes, again, you can go to someone that provides that to you, but it doesn't come particularly cheap. Whereas if you learn that side of technology or business and bring it in-house, then you have full control over it. You can trust it, it's secure, all of those kind of things, and then not a costly element of running a phone system.
Yeah. And then after learning enough, we started slowly moving people over to the new system, setting up new customers on the system, and it not failing on us.
No, and one of the things that FreePBX and that Sangoma backed product did was it lent itself really to our opinion that multi-tenant systems were not the way forward. So a multi-tenant system is where you have multiple customers on that one particular piece of software, on that one particular virtual machine or server somewhere. And of course, what that means is that if you come into a problem, so there's a bug that needs to be fixed, or an update's gone wrong, or something's not quite right, you've taken out all of those customers potentially that can't make and receive phone calls, or there's a problem. Whereas the way we saw it was that if we had them on individual phone systems, that would be a better way forward. And you could go to a data center where this stuff was incredibly cheap, $5 a month, and you could download the software and you could actually have a fully functioning phone system that could handle whatever, 20, 30, 40 extensions hanging off it with no problem, no impact on performance whatsoever. Whereas with a multi-tenant system, it needed to be a much, much bigger system, much more powerful, that could then cater for perhaps hundreds or thousands of customers.